Welcome back to the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. I, of course, am your host, KC Phoenix. All right, so there's been some changes to the show if you haven't noticed, and I just want to take a quick few minutes to discuss those changes. So this is sort of like podcast announcements. Before I go any further, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Speaking of the platforms that this podcast is on, all right, when I started this podcast back a while ago, I had to go through the process of building up this podcast in order to get on some of those platforms like Pandora, like iHeartRadio, and so on and so forth. And the reason I've dealt with Anchor as the main one, which is affiliated, because Spotify bought Anchor or something like that, but I've dealt with them because A, they're free, and B, it's been convenient. I've been considering switching from Anchor to another host of my podcast. I'm still on the fence about it. I'm debating, I'm doing the research. And the only thing is that if I switch to another host, which I don't mind paying for another host, it might affect the platforms I'm already on, because I have to see with my RSS feed, will it still stay the same? Or will something happen? And I can discuss that with the potential platform I'm considering going with. And just so you know, the reason I'm considering moving to another platform is because the way Anchor works is when you first sign up, they will be your sponsor at the beginning. But once you hit a certain threshold, then it stops where they don't sponsor you anymore and you have to get sponsors. And for me, I have listeners literally all around the world, but it doesn't hit the threshold to bring in the other sponsors that Anchor has available. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle. There are other sponsor sites that work with people with my listenership. The only thing is that Anchor, their analytics are not available to this particular company. So I have to consider another hosting platform where they sync together, where all I have to do, if I just send in saying, hey, I'm willing to allow you to be a sponsor on my show, they can just hit a button and I can hit a button. They can see the analytics and do that. Because one thing that's really been irritating me, and I'm just going to be direct, one of my episodes, which if I was a singer, this would be my greatest hit. There's one episode that I noticed, I still get plays on this episode every week. Every single week, there's always plays on this episode. And it is my most famous popular episode, which is It's a Daily Thought, which I have to do a daily thought today too. What time is it? Yeah, I have enough time for a daily thought. So it's you can't make peace when you aren't at war is the daily thought. And for whatever reason, I don't know if everyone is telling their grandmother about that particular episode or what, but everyone is always listening to that episode every week. I don't make any money off of that episode while I'm on Anchor at all. So it's kind of like, okay, this is steady. Yeah, it's cute. People are listening. Yeah, it expands my podcast visibility, but I'm not getting paid for that. So why am I still on Anchor? Type of thing. So that's why I'm searching out other options. As for the podcast, too with other things, obviously with some changes. I stopped using the introduction because I've switched things around. When I first started out this podcast, I was not doing tarot card readings. I was doing the, lifestyle with the daily thoughts from time to time, lucky numbers, wacky news, sports, even though I don't watch sports, which is the joke, and other things. And then I added tarot readings to my podcast because I was drawn to tarot readings, and I've always been intuitive before I started doing tarot readings. I've always been able to sort of like see things and whatnot. So I was just like, okay, let's add the tarot card readings. The tarot card readings became popular. And I was like, oh, okay, well then definitely we'll keep it on the podcast. Well, now the tarot card readings are more popular than the other stuff on the podcast. So it was like the podcast was 75% the wacky news, the lucky numbers, the daily thoughts, the sports, the this, the that, and 25% tarot card readings. Now I'm in the process of flipping that around, where is 75% tarot card readings, because that's what people seem to gravitate to, and I'm fine with that. And I enjoy doing them. Tarot card readings are so much fun. And now I will be doing more of them. Speaking of which, the new moon in Taurus is at the end of the month. I'll be doing a reading for that. And just a heads up, one of the decks that I'm using is a very sensual deck, and it's kind of lascivious. It's the Monera deck, but that's the deck I was called to use. That's the deck. As soon as I thought about it, that deck came to mind for whatever reason, which more than likely because Venus deals with love, sensuality. Venus, the planet, rules Taurus. So yeah, kind of makes sense. But yeah, I'll be using that deck and a few other decks. But just a heads up, and I'll give another heads up before I do the reading too, because when I tell you that deck has some cards in there that's like, woo! So yeah, but I digress. I'll do the new moon in Taurus reading. Also, I will continue to do the tarot readings, but it will be more of the tarot readings is what it will be. Thank you to everyone who's been liking the videos, subscribing to the channel. It's like I've lost subscribers and I gained subscribers throughout the past 28 days on YouTube. Thank you for the commenting as well. The likes, the commenting, and the shares, it helps YouTube-wise for the YouTube videos. It helps the algorithm. It is what it does. It puts me more out there in front of more people. So if you comment, if you like, if you share, if you subscribe to the channel, it always helps, and I'm thankful for that. Also, like I said before, I don't mind a question. If you ask a question in the comments and I see it, then I'll go ahead and I'll answer the question more than likely, unless it's just something out of left field. Now, and please keep in mind with anything that I answer, I always say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Yes, I'm intuitive, clearly. I'm not God, and none of the tarot readers are. And everyone has their own style of reading too, as well. So keep that in mind. I noticed there's this one lady, her name is Heidi. She can go through like 10 cards in 3 minutes and tell you, this is the message. Me, I'm a little bit simpler to True. If you ever want to check somebody out, even if you're not a Cancer, her readings are for Cancer, the sign of Cancer, which I am. I'm pretty sure most of my listeners know that. But True Water Intuition, what she does is she gives different timelines. It's not, oh, well, this card came out, so this is what it is. True doesn't read like that. True will say, okay, well, this card came out. It could mean this, or it could mean that. Because the cards can have multiple meanings, and you can pick up different types of timeline energies when you're doing tarot readings. So everyone is different. But to each his own. So yeah, if you leave a question in the comments, I don't mind doing a reading. I'm just thankful that those who watch the readings watch them. I appreciate it more than you know. Those who have been watching and supporting and liking on YouTube. I really, really do. And also my podcast listeners who have been with me since the very beginning before the whole YouTube thing. Because the podcast was sort of doing its own thing before YouTube. For my YouTube viewers, my podcast was already being listened to in Russia. It was already being listened to in Brazil, in the UK, in Canada, obviously in the United States, and so on and so forth, before the whole YouTube thing. So, yeah. And I thank all listeners and all watchers for supporting me by giving me their time. I appreciate it. But that's just a heads up. I have another thing I'm working on. I started the first part of it. I made the first purchase. Now I have to start doing the behind the scenes stuff to bring it together. Because let me tell you, putting it together, there's a song by Barbra Streisand. For those who listen to Barbra Streisand, it's called Putting It Together. Listen to that song, it's hilarious. It is so true. Trying to get everything to work out the way that you want it to work out properly and make sure this is right and make sure that is right. I've been in the process of doing that. I'm revamping the Keeping It Real with KC podcast. So yeah, it's going to be 75% tarot card readings and 25% lifestyle, entertainment, news and sports, wacky news, my daily thoughts, lucky numbers. I will still do lucky numbers as well from time to time because I enjoy doing lucky numbers. And some of my numbers showed up in the lotto too, by the way. Just saying. So, yeah, I'll still do that from time to time. It's just the point of balancing it all out and deciding how I want to do it. So I wanted to give you that heads up and let you know what was going on. And more stuff will be coming, knock on wood, God willing, as well. So we'll keep moving forward and keep pushing forward. Thank you again. I sincerely appreciate you. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. This podcast is carried on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Overcast, Bullhorn, Amazon Music, Audible, and several other podcasting platforms. Please feel free to listen to this podcast on whatever platform is most convenient for you. KIRWKC on all the social media platforms. Until next time, be blessed.